Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Vocal Advancement Podcast. I am your host, Tom, joined by my lovely co-host, Heather, today.
Hello there.
You all right, Governor?
Oh, don't get me started. We've literally, just before we started recording, been talking about accents in Broadway productions. I was explaining to Tom that one of my most watched TikTok videos was my reaction to Annalie Ashford's Mrs. Lovett, and how her accent was not quite in keeping with what us Brits would consider accurate for a Cockney accent. But I do feel like if that's not an accent you're exposed to very often, i.e. if you are American, you might not pick up on the inaccuracies of it, but it does drive us up the wall. But no more than probably when an American person hears people in the West End in London trying to do an American accent and failing miserably. I'm sure that's just as cringeworthy for them.
Yeah, the UK musical theatre stage American accent is either a hit or complete mess. And I went to see Ghost the musical many years ago. I saw it in London with the original cast, amazing, but the lead female, I can't remember her character, was played by an American musical theatre performer. Carrie something played her, and she was brilliant. And it toured the UK. We went to see it because we were like, it'd be quite good. Took our parents to see it, and like the first two bars of the opening song, the guy started talking. I was like, oh no. Like, I can't. His accent was horrendous. I was just like, no, please, not 2 hours of this.
I should say one of the weirdest combinations I ever experienced was when I went to visit my sister in Australia, and we went to see Billy Elliot, the musical, at a theatre in Adelaide, and there were Australians trying to do that Newcastle accent, and the mishmash of Australian and Newcastle was something, quite special.
The Newcastle accent can be a really nice accent, but it's really hard to do properly.
I couldn't possibly. I'm terrible. I'm not that great at accents myself. But yeah, they really possibly needed a bit more work. Some of them were great, actually. Some of them were really impressive. And some of them clearly hadn't put in as much work on that area as others.
But I think, like in the UK, I think we have some of the hardest accents to emulate because it's very, very rare to hear people doing a Scottish accent well. And, I don't have the thickest of brogues, as Americans would call my accent. It's not the thickest accent in the world. But you hear a lot of people going for the really... What's the nice way of putting it? Like stereotypical, the Shrek style, Mike Myers, Scott kind of accent. And there are people that do talk like that, but that's not really how the majority of us talk.
No.
But I think
don't lie, Tom. We know this is just your posh podcasting voice.
This is my podcast voice. I can't even do that accent.
Can you not?
I can't. I remember.
It just makes me think Rabsy Nesbitt. That's just aging me. It was a very popular comedy show when I was younger, Rabsy Nesbitt, and he spoke very much in that stereotypical, like, I'm sure the Americans wouldn't be able to understand a word he was saying.
But one of our team, Shar, she directs musicals and things like that, and so she was directing Shrek, and she had said to me, she's like, do you think you could get on a Skype call with like the kid playing Shrek and give him some coaching on the accent? I was like, I can't do that accent. I cannot help somebody else do that accent. I'm so sorry. I can put it on thick when I want to, but not like that.
Donkey!
Oh, that's quite good.
That's all you gotta do. Donkey!
But, I remember watching a comedian years ago talking about accents, and he was brilliant at, like, all the different accents. And he's like, you've got to find a phrase from the region to get you into the accent. And he was always talking about Liverpool. It was chicken and a can of Coke. and that was how you got into the accent.
I'll see if I want to get into a Liverpudlian accent. I have to swear, so I'm not going to tell you what I would say. We'll just stave off that one for now.
Yeah, and you can tell me off camera. Or we could do the vocal advancement late night edition podcast.
Late night edition. Oh my word. So talking about Broadway, I mean, that actually links us quite nicely to today's guest.
That was a greatly planned segment.
It was, wasn't it? We did that totally on purpose. It was totally planned out. So today we're talking to Bob Marks.
Yeah.
Who does a lot of work with singers, working in the New York musical theatre scene, helping specifically with audition material, getting them prepared to work professionally in musicals, in shows, in all sorts of things over there. So yeah, we wanted to pick his brains on how he got started and you know, any pearls of wisdom he could share for us mere mortals who might be helping our students to also start to audition, whether it is professionally or whether it's just for their local high school production or whatever else. So
he's a lovely gentleman.
He is very, very friendly.
Yeah.
So let's go speak to him.
So Bob, welcome to our podcast. It is a pleasure to have you with us today. Well, how are you doing?
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be across the pond, as they say, and talking to some voice teachers I probably never met in person.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to getting to know you actually a little bit better after the webinar you did for us. So perhaps you could maybe start off by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and your singing journey.
Well, I somehow got my first musical direction job at 14 years old. I was musical director for a very local production of Damn Yankees and didn't know what I was doing. Had no idea. I'd never done it before. I'd never seen Damn Yankees, but somehow got through it and really liked working with the singers. That was something I enjoyed. Playing the piano for that show led to other jobs locally in Queens. Queens is a suburb of Manhattan, New York City. And I started working with singers when they had problems with auditions or problems with rehearsals or problems with college auditions. Whatever they had, I was the guy they called, probably because I was very inexpensive. I was living at home. I could charge $5 an hour and just be fine. And I learned how to do it. It just took that much time. And then when I was about 16, my sister wanted voice lessons. So I asked around, found a voice teacher in Manhattan for her, Sue Seaton. And Sue asked me what I did. And I said, well, I play the piano for singers. I accompany them. I help them find songs and such. She goes, oh, you're a vocal coach. I said, I am? I'd never heard of a vocal coach. So I had business cards printed and I was a vocal coach. I rented studio space in Manhattan and kept working. And eventually opened an office on 7th Avenue and 54th Street, where I stayed for the next 45 years, teaching very happily private students and ultimately doing workshops and conferences and master classes and whatever else I was called to do. And it's been great. And then suddenly we had a pandemic. You may have heard about it. And
yes.
Nobody wanted to come to my office anymore. Of course, the building still wanted their rent. So luckily, we had the technology to make it work right from wherever we are. And I've been very busy on Zoom most days of the week. And I rent a small space on Sunday mornings in Manhattan for those people that need to see me in person. I think I'm better off on a screen, but that's about that. And I went back to school. I was a music major first, Queens College, and didn't like sitting through the harmony classes and the counterpoint and the ear training and all of that. Finally left, and I met a woman who was a speech therapist. Another job I never heard of. So I went to a conference with her to play the piano for people. And I saw all these exhibits, and I realized how much I didn't know about singing. I thought you just sing, and if it sounds good, it is good, which is part of it, but there's so much more. And I didn't want my children to go, well, Dad never finished college. Dad didn't go to college. Dad doesn't have a degree. So I said, maybe I'll go back to school and see what this is like. So I registered for a class at Montclair State College, now the university. And I did well. I was surprised myself. I just, I studied, I showed up, did my homework, and I could succeed. So I graduated with a degree in speech and voice pathology, communication sciences and disorders, which gave me so much more knowledge of anatomy, physiology, acoustics, phonetics. I mean, so many things I didn't know. And even though it was geared more towards articulation disorders and language acquisition disorders, I got enough voice out of it. And it was very helpful. And also, as important, gave me credibility in the industry. Because at that time, voice teachers predominantly were ex-opera singers. They didn't know what to do with musical theater. They didn't know what to do with belting. They didn't know what to do with children. And I was good for all of that. Also, what happened was at the end of my college 3 years, I got a job substituting in the pit of the musical Annie, which was a big hit on Broadway at the time. And I played piano for auditions and rehearsals and run-throughs and occasionally performances, and learned how to work with children even more so because I was closer to the age of the kids than I was to their parents. You know, I was 22 years old at the time. The kids were 12. So it was a little closer. And I've been working with children, including along with adults, for all these years. And
that was quite a job to get at 22. How did you fall into that one?
I went, my local high school music chairman had a son named Arnie Gross. Arnie was the pianist for Annie, one of the pianists. Annie was a busy job. I mean, you had a national company, you had the Broadway show, you had the auditions. There was always 2 or 3 pianists working. And Arnie got the job playing the piano for the movie All That Jazz. And we needed a sub. Turned out to be me.
I love it.
So I was very, very fortunate and got to know a lot
Power
of people.
of networking.
Yeah. And it just so happened, oddly, the office building that I had my studio in was also the building where Peter Howard, who was the conductor of Annie, happened to be. My next door neighbor happened to be Martin Charnan, who was the lyricist and director of Annie. And I was coaching his daughter at the time also. So just everything is such a small world. It's just, you know, how do you meet people? I mean, I always ask my clients how they find me, and they find me in such unusual ways, and it's never the same. One found me because somebody thanked me on Instagram and posted a video of singing. I said, I have to find him. So it's all word of mouth.
Social media is a very powerful tool these days.
It is, absolutely. And you can't, you're going to be on it whether you like it or not. So you may as well be very careful and get yourself in a good position.
Yeah. So then, Bob, tell us about who your average client is these days. So who are you kind of working with, and what sort of things are you helping them with at the moment?
Well, the world has changed in that no longer do you have to build up a massive collection of audition material, because as often as not, they will send you material to learn. So a lot of it is helping them through the printed matter they're given. You know, it's so easy for them to attach a PDF file to an email. It used to be you had to walk to your agent's office and get a photostat, or then you had to get a fax. And who had a fax machine? But your agent did. So you had to pick up the fax, and then you had to figure out how to put on a piano because it was very flimsy paper. Now it's just so easy. And I can make a track for them. I can make a piano track with the melody, make a piano track without the melody. And with self-tapes, they're so much more in control. Because it's not like they have to bring a pianist to an audition, stand in line, wait in the waiting room, learn a song, worry about their voice. They can record it over and over until they're happy with it. So it's, I think it's a boon. Plus, for the people auditioning, they don't have to rent a rehearsal room and get an accompanist and spend the time listening to everybody. They can fast forward right through tracks if they don't like them. And I'm convinced they don't listen to the whole thing of most tracks.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
I think they can get through a lot more people that way.
Well, bearing that in mind then, when people are thinking about self-tape, should you start with a bang? I mean, has that adjusted for how you might think about your, say, 90-second audition piece? Would you change it from if you were doing it live, where you might kind of start and build up? Would you?
No, I would just make sure that I had good lighting, good sound. I would start with a full body shot so that they can see who you are. I mean, if you're not physically right for the part, there's a good chance that it won't matter. Years ago, when I started, we used to have something called EPIs. That was Equity, the union, Equity Principal Interviews, where the creatives would sit behind a table, meet the actor, look at the resume, look at the actor, say, oh, do you tap dance? Yes, okay. Well, come back and learn this. And it was just a talk. You didn't have to warm up. You didn't have to do anything special. And we're kind of back to the idea of just going through people, because a lot of it is the look. And you have this. I think a big percentage of callbacks is because you look like the way they picture the character. So start with the long shot, slate, bring it in so that it's like a head and shoulders shot, and communicate. Be yourself. I wouldn't try to replicate a Broadway performance you've seen the way you remember it, but make something your own. And if your personality and your voice and your emotion transcends the medium, you're doing all you can. I also remind my clients this. Most things you audition for, you will not get. And that's just the truth. And when they get, I didn't get this. I can't believe I really wanted this. I thought if I really wanted it hard enough, I go, I want to win the lottery. Most lottery tickets will not win. It is what it is. And the only way you can fail in this business is to give up. There's no failure because there's always another audition. There's no biological clock. There's no nothing. You can just keep auditioning, and you may change categories. You may go from, the teen to the young adult to the adult to the grandmother, whatever it is. And you just change with how you change. We all do. We all have to go into our categories. And I tell them you just have to be ready for everything because you get very little notice. I mean, I worked with somebody yesterday who has to have a self-tape in by tomorrow morning.
Wow.
And I always suggest to people, don't try to learn a song that you think is right for the show. Just do something you're totally comfortable with that's the closest you can come. Because it's never the song choice that gets you the callback. Nobody goes, well, he's not very good, but I really like that song. I have to call him in. It's never going to happen. So just have a wide assortment of songs. She was auditioning for Jesus Christ Superstar, and luckily she had some material from Chess, which was around the same era and the same style, and that was fine. And just being another person singing I Don't Know How to Love Him, that you just learned a day ago, it's not going to do any more than giving a good performance of Heaven Help My Heart or some other song.
Yeah. Do you generally recommend people, if they are auditioning in Broadway or West End or wherever, how many songs would you recommend that they have in their kind of audition pad that they can pull from?
Well, I mean, the more audition material you're familiar with, the more choosing you can do. I think when you go into an audition, you can have 5 songs in your book. You can have, a current pop song. You could have a Broadway ballad, Golden Age standard, Broadway up-tempo. You could have a more contemporary up-tempo and a more contemporary ballad. Now, if you happen to be, let's say, a jazz singer, have a jazz piece. Shows what you can do. If you're a classical singer, have an aria. Shows what you can do. Just be ready for a lot of things. Also, it depends what you're auditioning for. Can you imagine going into a clothing store saying, I need clothes? We go, okay, where are you going? I don't know. Well, you need warm clothes, cool clothes, beach clothes, party clothes. You can't tell. And if you're auditioning for a season of summer stock, it's very different than auditioning for a specific production of a specific show. So you want to gear your material for that audition to what you're auditioning for.
And so you're working with a client, then how do you pick your audition cut? The 90 seconds. What's your process for that?
Well, first of all, I love that you're saying 90 seconds and not 16 or 32 bars. Because whenever they ask for a number of bars, I remind my people that a bar is not a measure of time. They're doing it because they're short on time, and yet 32 bars can take 2 minutes, and 32 bars can take 30 seconds. Just depends on the time signature, the tempo, the song, and everything else. And we can agree that a minute has 60 seconds. And so I like saying around a minute. I just take the best part of the song, in my opinion. I take something with a beginning, middle, and an end. I want to still tell a story in that cut. So I don't want to start with, or else, because or else what? From where are we coming in from? You want it to sound like a whole song. I tell people, sorry, I work in analogies. I tell people, if you have a 12-ounce burger, and a 66-ounce burger, you don't want the 6-ounce burger to be the 12-ounce burger cut in half. You want it to still look like a hamburger. And the song should still sound like a song. But nowadays, online, you can even buy cuts. You can buy long audition cuts, short audition cuts. There's an amazing variety out there. In the early days, we had computers but no online shopping. I spent a lot of time doing arrangements for the students. That was a big part of my job. You want to make sure that when you do the 90-second cut, that if it's a live accompanist, that the pianist knows where to start. A lot of people mark, start here, and that's where they sing. You want to know what you're going to hear from the piano to get you into the song. So an arpeggio sounds different than a vamp, but a vamp sounds different than a bell tone. I mean, everything has its own way. You just have to know what you want, know what it sounds like, and impart that information to the accompanist. So that's very important too. You want to have a real ending. You don't want it to just stop. So everything is a matter of just making a nice 90-second small plate special. And I like it. I mean, just get rid of all the repeats. I think that's the first thing. Yeah. Don't say anything twice. And originally the 16-bar audition was starting from the bridge going to the end, which still often works. But there are so many ways of doing it now, and so few AABA songs that make sense like that.
I like the burger analogy. I think that's a great thing to consider. But it kind of makes me now lead to my next question, which is what songs do you find that people tend to overdo that you think, oh no, time to retire that?
Well, I suggest to my students that they avoid singing from anything currently running on Broadway. First of all. Don't sing from Wicked, don't sing from Dear Evan Hansen, don't sing from Hamilton, just don't sing anything currently running. I also suggest that they avoid signature songs. Songs that when you hear the vamp, you think, oh, Liza Minnelli. I mean, those are big shoes to fill. You don't want to fill Idina Menzel's shoes. You want to do something that you can make your own. And there's so much out there. There's just so much. When I did Damn Yankees, my first show that I musical directed, the show was 15 years old. The show was 14 years old, because I was 14. The show was the same year I was born. Okay? 14 years old. And look how much has been written since. And they're still doing Damn Yankees 68 years later. Wow. You know? If they had done a 68-year-old show in 1969, that show would have been Gilbert and Sullivan. Yeah. That show would have been nothing like what Broadway is now. Now Broadway, you have about 100 years that you have to choose from. It's a miraculous thing. Plus, everything is obtainable. You used to have to call collectors and try to find copies of things and look in old bookstores. And nowadays, everything is there. And if it's in public domain, you can download it, right? So it's a great time to choose music. And again, my friend David Craig, who was one of the first vocal coaches, and he wrote 3 books, excellent books. David's expression was, you don't have to be different to be good, because being good is different enough. And that's one of my favorites. There used to be people that would come to me and say, I want to sing a song that nobody has sung before, that nobody knows, that they've never heard. And my feeling is, well, then the pianist never heard it either. And that's going to be a problem for you. And you don't want them sitting there at the desk going, I wonder, is that from a show? I think it's from a movie. I don't know. I heard this song before. And they're so busy listening to the song that they're not listening to the singer. I would rather they sing a song from a show that's not done often, but they've heard it before, and just make it your own. And there's something for everybody out there, without doing something that's completely unknown. There's no reason to do a song that, like, from a show that never got put on Broadway and that nobody's ever heard of and that your cousin wrote. Just find something. There's plenty out there, and you have to find a teacher and a coach that's familiar with the material. And also, don't forget YouTube. Don't forget Spotify. Don't forget Apple Music. There's so many sources of music to listen to. There's no reason not to have enough material.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So many shows as well that came and went and almost forgotten about, but, you can easily pull from.
Well, there's some shows even that played the West End and never played New York. Windy City was a show that has a beautiful score, and nobody's ever heard it because out here we've never seen it. So there's that, and you have shows that played New York but never made it to England, and
that's it.
There you go too. I used to call chapel music.
There are songs that are considered very, very popular choices in the US that I find are very underutilized in the UK. I don't know whether that works the other way round. For example, shows like Pippin. Very rarely do I hear anyone singing anything from that in the UK, but I know in the US it's quite a popular choice.
Well, they do sing Corner of the Sky a lot.
Yes, exactly.
But Extraordinary a little less.
Yes.
Kind of Woman a little less. Mm-hmm. It just depends on what song you sing. Also, when you audition with a song from Pippin, you're kind of in that 1970s mode.
Yeah.
And it makes it a little... You don't want to audition for My Fair Lady with Pippin.
No.
But I'm surprised it's not done in the West. But Pippin played there, didn't it?
I think so, yes. But it just was never as popular a show as it seems to have been. I don't know whether does it get used for high school productions and things in the US, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not a popular choice over here for that. We're more likely to do something like Blood Brothers. I don't know how popular that was in the US.
That was a great show.
Yeah.
With some good music. My friend Mark Malin is a teacher in the UK. I don't know if either of you know him. But he was the vocal director for Jersey Boys out there and the vocal director for Mamma Mia out there. And I remember sitting with him and he's trying to describe what a jukebox musical is. And I'm going, why would they do that? Why would they do that? And now it's hard to find an original score.
Oh, isn't it? Or an original story.
Right. Because you want to pre-sell. Mm-hmm. You're meeting somebody for the first time and say, what does he look like? You want to know what actor he might resemble. What show? Oh, this is a contemporary version of Grease or whatever it is. They need an example.
Mm-hmm. So when somebody comes to you and they've got an audition or they've got a self-tape that needs to be done by tomorrow, what are your priorities for them within a session? What are the things that you prioritize? Because obviously you are very limited in time and what you can do in that short period of time. What do you feel like is the main thing that needs to be focused on at that point?
You mentioned they're preparing a self-tape.
Yeah.
So right away, we don't have to worry about the accompanist because it will be self-accompanied. My main goal is to make sure they have the tools they need to get it ready. Because I get them for 45 minutes or an hour. I want to make sure, first of all, what show are they auditioning for? What are the requirements? What do they ask for? They want one up-tempo, one ballad. They want two ballads. They want this particular piece of music. What is it? Then if it's music that has been sent to them, we want to find out if the key is right for their voice, and also try to determine if the key is negotiable. If it's a manuscript copy of a show that's never been done before, I assume it can go up or down a key. But if it's an orchestrated show that's going to be done in the key, there's very little you can do. It is what it is.
Right.
And I want to make sure that they leave with a track that has the melody and a track that has the accompaniment, and they know the cut, and they can work on it over the weekend and get it ready.
So it's just kind of organizing in their head, right? This is where you're going to be starting. This is where you're going to be finishing. All the logistics. Yeah,
it's like any logistical. It's like planning a wedding. There's so much going on that you want to hire a wedding planner just to say, okay, what kind of invitations, what kind of tablecloths, what kind of food, where are you going to go? Simple. You have to break it down because it can be overwhelming. I've had clients come in with 30, 40 pages they had to learn. And it's just a lot to do. And I've actually had them come in with 30, 40 pages they had to learn. And then at the actual audition, not asked to sing any of it. Somebody had a callback for Les Mis, and the casting person had not been there for the original audition. She learned all the Eponine, all the Fontaine, and he said, so what did you sing for the first audition? She told him, said, sing that. It turned out when she walked in the room, he just didn't think she was right. So she could have sung anything. She could have not shown up, didn't matter. Sometimes you can stand on your head and it just won't matter if they're not looking for you.
It's gut-wrenching when that happens.
So I'm just wondering as well, because we obviously mentioned the pandemic and how that changed how you teach. Do you find that's changed or had a much bigger influence on how auditionings are working currently? Or do you find it's gone back to pretty much before pandemic?
Oh, no. It's certainly bounced back from zero, which is what it was for a while until we had some vaccines. But no, I don't think it's ever going to go back to completely non-self-tapes. I think the self-tape is here to stay because it's much easier to just get links and just click on it, watch a little, say, okay, next, okay, next. It's hard to do that when people are walking in the room and explaining to the pianist what to do and all of that. Then you're dealing with personal things. This way, it's much easier for them. And they can weed out very quickly. Kind of like online dating. It's here to stay. I didn't have that. That was not so. You had to meet somebody. But now you just look at pictures. Boop, 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 boop. And it's like going shopping. So it's a different world. And I don't think it's necessarily for the worse. I think it's a good thing because people don't have to make a big deal out of every audition. They can do 3 or 4 self-tapes over a weekend and continually submit themselves. And I think that's a great thing. It makes it much more democratic. It makes it able to for the auditioners to see more people. It makes it possible for the actors to go to more auditions. So.
Do you think it opened the door for more people from kind of outside New York and that to audition now that you can send it remotely?
Absolutely. If it's a union job, you have to be careful because they may not want to hire somebody who doesn't have a residence where the show is being done, because then they have to pay per diem, they have to pay transportation. It makes it a little more difficult. If it's a non-union job, and you can simply say, you got to get here, or you got to find a place to stay, this is what we're paying, then sure, people can audition for things everywhere. You can audition for a West Coast TV series from New York. You can audition for a Broadway show from Austin, Texas. It doesn't matter. And if you get a call back, all the better. Also, communicating with your agent and your manager is much easier. You have FaceTime now, if you need to see the person. So it's a much more open world now.
Yeah.
but it also means there's a lot more competition.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
yes,
that's
that
true.
too.
Even us as voice teachers, I used to do a lot of work on British type shows like Mary Poppins and Secret Garden and those kind of things. And now, if you're auditioning for a British type show, you can just get a voice teacher from England. Just as easy getting to me. It's not like they restricted to the New York area voice teachers. So I say, yes, my clientele has increased. I mean, 9 a.m. once a week I teach in Thailand. And it's 9 p.m. there, but that's okay. But that never used to happen before.
No.
So it makes it a different world, but not necessarily not for the better. I was held back by the idea that I couldn't simultaneously accompany a singer online.
Yeah.
Once I came to the realization that I will not be able to accompany a singer and that they will have the accompaniment on their end, and laptops were a little more affordable. They could play the track on their phone. But before 2008, you really couldn't do that.
No.
So they could play the track on their phone. They could sing to it. I can hear them sing. I can text them an MP3. I can text them a PDF. I can do so much with them. And on Sunday mornings, I go in and I see the people that really want to see me. But in a way, also because I gave up my office, I had a huge music library. I mean, tens of thousands of titles, if not more. And I gave it to a music collector. And I have scans of thousands and thousands of songs on one iPad. We didn't have iPads that were really conducive to music until the 12.9-inch large iPads came around. And they hold an incredible amount. And it's just opened my life a lot. Dropbox opened my life a lot. Because
is that how you store your music? Is it with Dropbox?
Yeah. Well, I store it in Dropbox and then bring in selected material to Fourscore.
Right.
Which is a wonderful organizational program and does so many things. Once I discovered that combination, that really helped. I got Fourscore when it first came out, probably 13 years ago. It was around $2. And I didn't know what to do with it because we weren't using PDF files. You couldn't read it. It was too small. And scanning was not a thing, really. Who had a scanner? They wait for the scanner to scan. And nowadays, I scan with my phone and things just pop up and they really, really work. And I remember one of my big technological achievements was I was in the middle of Paris teaching a workshop, and one of the students needed a song in a different key. Well, they all didn't know what to do about that. But I was using Finale already. I was on the computer. I used something called Go to My PC from a bar in Paris, got to my computer in New York, called up the sheet music, transposed it, saved it as a PDF, and sent it to myself. I was just blown away by that. And that was 20 years ago, but I was blown away.
Yeah.
With the capabilities, were just astounding.
Absolutely. It's amazing what we can do now. It really
I know.
is.
It's only getting better. Like, there's people working on real-time, like Zoom-like stuff so that you can actually accompany people in real time and have real-time feedback with the piano. So I give it, 5 years, that will be out before we know it.
Well, the problem with that, I think, is that the student has to have special software and everything as well. And a lot of times they can't even get a Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
They have no idea what to do. So if I depend on them to get a plugged-in internet connection with a special software and use a microphone and headphones, like this is the first time I'm using headphones ever on Zoom because I just use the speaker and the speaker's fine. It's just it's nice to have it like right in your head, but it's just different. So I can't imagine telling my students they have to go buy headphones. They have to go get this. There's this software, I think, where you can play your own MIDI piano. It sends the MIDI signal out to the student, which plays their digital piano. Yeah, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. My
It's
45
definitely
minutes
easier
would
to
be spent to the
yeah.
setup. You
I
know?
was going to say, it's a lot easier just to email them an MP3 that
Absolutely.
they just open up. There we
Absolutely.
go. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
amazing.
and luckily I'm still amazed because I started when there were real pianos and the only electric pianos were like little dinky things, and just seeing the thing grow. Like in Annie, we played something called an RMI, Roxachord, and that made that little harpsichord sound. You know that
Yes.
not that sound, but you know. So I was just astounded that I had a piano, I had an electric piano, and I had a cellist sitting on top of the piano. That did the music box things.
Oh, okay.
But I felt so pressured. Like, what if the plug falls out? What if I don't have the pedal down in the right position? What if I have it too high or too low? And it was a lot. Now with MainStage and all of the things you can do and the setting up and the programming of your keyboard, it's a lot. So I write out a lot of it. In my book, I write about a lot of this stuff because I want to prepare singers for their auditions. You know, I found that when I was playing piano for auditions, I had so many ideas that why don't they just do this simple adjustments that they could make? And I always thought one day I have to write a book. One day I have to write a book. Well, we started writing a book, and then it took years. And then the pandemic happened. Nothing else to do. So we're going to finish this book. We're going to finish this book. That's that. So I was very happy to have it done and to know that it's been helping people.
So, Bob, share the name of your book with everyone.
Sure, it is. This is the book. It's called Bob Marks, 88 Keys to Successful Singing Performances. I wanted to make it short chapters. I don't like long chapters. And I thought 88 was a good number. Piano keys and all.
Yeah.
And we tried to divide up the book, you know, as far as preparation, coaches versus teachers, preparing for auditions, how to store your music selections you might want. And also there are anecdotes from students about what happened to them at auditions. So people have been very kind about it, and hopefully I'm sure the book will outlive me and help people for a long time.
Amazing.
And if people want to find out more about your book or more about me perhaps working with you, where can people find you?
Well, I learned a long time ago to get the name Bob Marks because somebody suggested to me I was on an old-fashioned email system. He said, you should go to America Online. I said, what's that? He said, just go to AOL.com and you'll use your name. And I couldn't get Bob Marks. And this is my name. How could I not get my name? I didn't really understand how things worked. But then he said, no, you have to reserve it. So I am Bob Marks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and bobmarks.com. If you just type in Bob Marks, you will find me. I'm very easy to find. And I'm happy to communicate with anybody that wants to ask a specific question. They can email me, text me, DM me. I'm easy to connect with.
Great. Well, what we'll do is we'll make sure we put links in our show notes to your website and to your book, and so people can get a hold of you and get in touch.
Oh, thank you very much. So luckily, it's all over Amazon. I find, you sold a copy in China. Look at that. I wonder who bought it.
Brilliant.
It's there.
Well, Thank you so much for coming to talk to us today, Bob. It's been lovely and highly entertaining as ever.
Great. Well, thank you. It was a pleasure, and I'm so glad we could communicate as if we're next door.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
All right. Well, stay well.
So that was Bob and Auditions. And as I said, he's a lovely gentleman, and he's got lots of stories to share over the years, but lots of great advice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We probably could have spoken to him for another hour or so if we wanted to. He's got a lot of wisdom and experience and, lots of, like I say, pearls of wisdom to share with us on auditioning.
Yeah, I found the whole because somebody like I'm not a musical performer or anything like that, but the whole idea of these like the self tapes that they were talking about, like started to hear that term more and more during the pandemic, and like when we were, I don't know if you remember, but we were talking to Gerald about this, about session singers and how he was saying that like self tapes had become a big thing in the session singing industry, and with people at home, they could take more and more part. So it was interesting to hear Bob talking about some of these things that had spilled into like the musical theatre world and how they're using this and technology to manage that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and recently it in the UK certainly, I don't know whether this has happened elsewhere as well, but the Dear Evan Hansen producers basically have dabbled in creating an open call audition that is all online. So they used TikTok and they invited people to submit videos of themselves singing any song from Dear Evan Hansen, to tag them in their video and also upload it on their website with a view to creating, like I say, like an open call. Traditionally open call auditions, it's like anyone who wants to come and audition, come through the doors, come and audition.
Yeah.
And so they've effectively done the same thing, but using a self-tape sort of method. Perform online and then upload it. So I'll be interested to see whether they actually cast anybody off the back of that. But I tell you what it is, it's a fantastic marketing ploy, because every time I opened up TikTok, I had videos of people singing Dear Evan Hansen songs and, submitting their audition to the whole world.
Well, what better way to create publicity for your show? Didn't
exactly?
I got a vague recollection. Didn't Six the Musical cast their show this way as well, with like an open call kind of, not not the traditional routes, but they did an open call to anybody who could audition.
Yeah, a lot of shows do open calls. This is the first time I've seen it done virtually all on TikTok. Although they might have done it before I got into TikTok. For other shows, tell us if you're listening and you know about other things that have done that. Yeah, or on Facebook for us oldies. So it was a unique. And like I say, I thought it was a really clever marketing ploy, and a lot of people were a bit kind of down on it a little bit. They were like, "This is ridiculous. This is just a big marketing ploy." But actually, if you love theatre, you want theatre to succeed. So, I'm all for them doing whatever it takes to popularise theatre so that people keep going to see these shows, so that these shows carry on existing, because they're incredibly expensive to do. Just the other day, it was announced that Frozen in the West End will be closing in September. And it's just because it's such an expensive show. And if you don't pack out the theatre night after night after night, it just can't afford to carry on going, which is a shame, because then, people get less opportunities to go and see these things. So I am all for anything that popularises a show and makes people want to go and see a musical who maybe hadn't thought of doing so beforehand.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love going to the theatre, love seeing shows, love going to see your favourite shows that you've seen time after time, and it kind of word for word and all that. But I love going to see new stuff that you've never seen. And I had that experience last year. I went to see Six for the first time as a total last minute, we've got a voucher from the pandemic that's expiring, better book some tickets. Oh, Six, what's that? Oh, sounds good. And absolutely loved the show, absolutely loved it. And it was just incredible.
It's a great show.
And it's a fabulous show. I love it. And do you know, we have it. We watch quiz shows with dinner or our lunch. We'll sit and watch UK quiz shows like Pointless or something like that. And now every time Henry VIII and his wife's come up, we're like, yes, we know this. And then the question comes on.
I always joke that my entire history knowledge comes from musical theatre.
But you not find the question comes up and then you have to sit and sing through the song in your head to get the answer.
Sing through the song.
It's the only way I remember it is in the music.
I love it. So my entire knowledge of American history comes from Hamilton. It just I rely on these shows to teach me things.
Well, music is educational and transformational.
Absolutely.
I know. And I was thinking though, like, because the kind of self tapes as well, like it must be for an industry that's kind of, because like imagine, well, you've been in shows and stuff, so you know this, but like, I live in Edinburgh, traveling down to London for auditions and standing about for hours with no guarantee of anything, like that's expensive, that's time consuming, so being able to just pop through to my spare room and sing a song and record it, 40 times until it's perfect, and then just send it by email.
Brilliant.
Like it must be amazing for these performers, because it must open the doors to so many opportunities that they couldn't go for before.
It absolutely would. Like I'm pretty sure I would have auditioned for more when I was younger if that had been one of my very first audition experiences was an open call audition for Hairspray down in London, and it was an early call, so I went down the night before. So I paid for my train fare down there. I paid for my hotel to stay over the night. A horrible, decrepit, rundown hotel, because I was, pretty much a student at the time and had no money. And then went to the audition, walked in. They lined us all up in rows, and you step forward, you step back, you step forward, you step back. Right, everybody on the front row stay, everybody on the back row, off you go. And I was on the back row.
Oh.
I didn't get to sing. I didn't get to dance. I didn't get to do any acting. I literally paid all that money to go down to London just to stand there for them to go, yeah, no, off you go. And it's quite depressing when that sort of thing happens. It makes you go, wow. If you're not living in the area, you're right. It makes you not want to do it again, because what a lot of waste of money just to be told, no, you don't look like what we were looking for. So
yeah,
if at that point I'd been given the opportunity to send in a self-tape, then I would have been more inclined, I think, to apply for more stuff at that point when I was skint.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a cutthroat industry with this, and like there are things coming out about other audition shows and stuff like that now that the contracts and non-disclosures are expiring. When you hear the practices that go on in these shows, like the just sheer degrading activities they put people through, and like Bob alluded to this as well in his chat about singers that it doesn't matter what they sing. Was it the example he gave, like a student had memorized a script and didn't even sing? They were like, it doesn't matter because you just don't look right.
Oh yes, yeah,
that must be like, I mean, I know you probably grow thick skin when you're in the industry and you get used to it, but that still must be like difficult.
It's gutting.
Yeah, gutting, that's the word. Like to process that.
It's gutting. Yeah, it is, because that's something. I think because it's out of your control, it's almost worse. Like if you went and you did a singing audition and you knew you screwed it up, you'd come away and go, oh, I get why I didn't get the job. But to go and not even be allowed to attempt to sing because they already made a judgment on the way you look is gutting, because you're like, well, I couldn't help that.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that.
There's nothing I can do about that. No.
It's interesting though, like we're getting political, but like it's interesting they're allowed to get away with that. And the kind of like, if you went for a job interview, an employer would never be allowed to get away with that. They would be dragged to the courts for equal opportunities and all that stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's a what's the word I'm looking for, like an exception to the law around that when it comes to casting. Yeah. That they can specifically look for a particular look for a particular role.
I suppose it kind of makes sense. Like when you hear, because you read stories about so and so got cast in a film, and it's like they approached 3 people, but they really wanted this person because the character was written with that person's look or physique or mannerisms or something in mind. So I guess it's one of these things that's probably not going to go anywhere anytime soon, sadly. But
I know, and although it is getting, I would say it's getting a little bit better. It's not getting great, but it's getting a little bit better. Shows like Six, for example, they cast with a huge amount of diversity in their cast in terms of the ethnicities of their cast, the body shapes of their cast. They are a little bit more inclusive with who they look for those parts more so than other shows would be, which I think is that's the way forward. I would love to see that happen more and more.
I mean, if you've got the talent, who cares what you look like? You know, if you're talented enough to perform the role, that should, well, in my humble opinion, that's all that should matter. But I don't know what it's like to be a casting producer on a show with all the pressures of, you know, you've got to sell tickets and, you know, all that jazz that comes with it.
Yeah, and let's face it, sex sells. If you've got sexy people in your show, it helps.
It certainly does, you know. They don't put celebrities in roles in shows for no reason, whether the celebrity is an accomplished singer or not. Sometimes it's more about bums on seats because that name will bring people in.
That's bums on seats. Yeah, Chicago is famous for that. They will stick anybody with a name in their cast regardless of how appropriate they are for the part. But again, I'm like, in one hand, I'm like, oh, that's really disappointing for that really well-trained person who could have done that role significantly better. But on the other hand, I'm back to, but it gets people in the theatre because, you know, they liked that person from that soap opera that they watch. So they've come to see this show that they never would have gone to see because they love that particular person that's starring in it. So it gets new blood into the theatre. So it's a real kind of trade-off, I suppose.
And, you know, like to put a positive spin in it, I've seen shows where there's been some celebrity from the TV. For example, went to see Wicked, and the wizard was played by an actor from Brookside, which is like a British soap drama from like the 90s. And you see, like, they see the name and you're like, oh, okay. And he was brilliant. He was really, really good at it. And then went to see Legally Blonde years ago, and it was Duncan from Blue, and you're like, oh, boy band, yeah, okay, he can kind of sing, but American accent and all that. And he was absolutely brilliant. Like, he was really good, and I actually was so surprised afterwards where we were talking about the show, and I was like, I was so nice to see him do such a great job in the role.
Yeah.
And, you know, that it was worth having him in the show. Because, as you say, like, we've sat through stuff and you're like, oh, no, please. Like, this is only the first 5 minutes, not 2 hours of this.
Yeah, I'm not going to name names, but I have seen some pretty poor performances from people who have been miscast. But, yeah. But I have also been surprised, actually, by people. I saw actually Anthony Costa from Blue. Yeah, they're all getting jobs in music. He did Blood Brothers and was very good actually. So yeah, it's nice when they surprise you.
It is. It is. It's nice to see because let's face it. They've been brought up in that kind of performing background, so the singing shouldn't necessarily be the problem for them. You know, but I think sometimes the jump from singing to acting, and you know, some people do it very well and they do a great job of it, and other people you're a bit like, I don't think the Oscars are going to be calling anytime soon.
Oh, there you go. That's us setting the world straight, isn't it?
That's how it's going to work from now on. Tom and Heather in charge of the auditioning industry in the UK musical theatre scene.
That's it. We'll decide what's appropriate and what's not. I love it.
I know.
So we've got lots more episodes coming up this season. So what do people need to do, Tom, if they want to make sure that they don't miss the next episode of the Vocal Advancement Podcast?
Yeah, so wherever you are listening to this, be it on your favourite podcast app or you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, look for the little button that says follow or subscribe and click that so that you get notified when it comes out. But if you're on YouTube watching the video of our shenanigans, then look for the subscribe button and click that. And then if you click the little bell beside it, it will tell you when the episode comes out. And you can leave comments on the video. So if there's stuff you want to see us talk about, if you've got ideas, or you've got some audition tips that have worked in your studio, then you can share them in the comments. And, you know, maybe what we'll do is we'll collect them and then we'll read them out in future episodes.
Yeah, great. We'd love to hear that.
And it's worth mentioning as well, Bob actually did a webinar for us a couple of months back about audition success, and I can't remember the exact title, but we'll put a link in the description to that because the recording is available for purchase. So if you want to get to see more of Bob and the training that he did for us, you can do that. And if you use the code that we'll put in the show notes, We'll give you a little cheeky discount for listening.
We love a cheeky discount.
We do. We do. I love a discount. Oh,
It's only
whenever
for the
I buy
special
anything,
people who have. No, I was going to say it's only for the special people who've managed to listen all the way through the podcast episode and are still with us
Absolutely.
right now.
yeah. You get a special discount.
Yeah.
I know. I am actually like that much of a cheapskate that whenever I'm signing up for something or buying something, I will go and immediately Google, like, you know, da discount code, da promo code.
I did the same thing.
You'd be amazed what you can find. Like I got a discount code that got me like 35% off and a free product worth £30 once when I was ordering something. I was like, oh, thanks very much.
Amazing.
Love it.
We love that.
We do.
Well, there you go, guys. Make the full use of that lovely discount code and come, download the episode, the training with Bob and find out a little bit more about what he has to say about auditioning in the New York scene.
Yeah, because, it's worth repeating. The guy has done hundreds, if not thousands, of audition preps over a very long career that he's had. So he knows his stuff. Mm-hmm.
He does indeed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's it for this episode.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, I hope you're enjoying the season so far, wherever this episode may have appeared in the season.
I'm sure you're listening avidly to each episode and waiting with bated breath for the next, aren't you all?
I know I am.
If not, it's just me. Yes.
Well, yeah. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you soon.